You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Sorry, folks. Phil's microphone is not working right now. Oh, what? Did you get that?
Did I just get a mic? What just happened?
I think it's because we were jiggling with the mic stand.
Alabama and Tennessee's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil, I want to play the music all over again to start over. I feel like I'm doing something wrong.
Unfortunately, I think we're past that point.
Hey, we're live in the Rightside studios, guys, where things just sometimes happen like they do. But we're proud you're with us here on what we like to, generally speaking, call a Taco Tuesday. So hit me some Taco Tuesday, man. Let's just do it.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's Taco Tuesday!
It is indeed Taco Tuesday, and now my microphone is working reliably. So that's crazy. How'd they get unplugged?
I think when you when we were testing, the mic stand, I guess the cord got jiggled.
Well, I'll be John Brown.
I know it.
Okay. All right. We're back on. And that's JP on the board, who obviously unplugged my mic before the show started.
Yeah, that was a prank. That was a prank. I'm not that smart to do that prank.
No, you good?
Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. It's a full day. We got a full slate of stuff for you. So listen, this show, no guests today by design, because I knew the content was going to be so thick. I mean, I'm just wondering if we can get the whole Triple Dipper done today. I don't know, but we're gonna kick in a show right now that's going to be timely and relevant on some things that are happening as we speak, and they might even develop more as we speak. So with that being said, I got a Triple Dipper full of stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, I'm calling it military-minded. Now, you guys know my own personal background with the military. Generationally, my family is filled with Army officers, my grandfather, my father, myself, my son. All said and done, it's very much in the news because right now, today, we have Pete Hegseth, who is going through his confirmation hearings to be the defense secretary in the Trump administration. But what we also have was last night, Joe Biden decided to give, one of his fading away speeches. And it was all filled up with all the things he believes he's accomplished, which everybody looks at and goes, where are you right now? We'll talk about all of it. Number 1, Triple Dipper, military minded. Number 2, the Second Amendment constantly under challenge. The left is constantly going after your Second Amendment right to bear arms. And number 2 is called Live Free or Die. Live free or die. Have you heard about the latest attempts to curtail Second Amendment liberties in various places around the nation? And oh, by the way, what's the Supreme Court of the United States saying? Well, we'll talk about it. As always, keeping abreast of infringements of our liberties. Number 2, live free or die. And then number 3, are we watching the death of wokeness? Is it possible? Is it possible that we have seen wokeness sort of play itself out? The only problem with that is it reduces the amount of material I have for the show, but otherwise it's good. So are we watching the death of wokeness? I've got some things that you may want to consider that at the very least indicate that the left is running out of steam when it comes to wokeness. Number 3, Triple Dipper, death of wokeness. All right, let me jump into the opening monologue, the Rightside Way monologue. As always, every single day, the Rightside Way monologue is brought to you by attorney Stan McDonald from a partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. And I'll tell you more about Stan McDonald here in just a moment. So today, Pete Hegseth, President Donald Trump's nominee for defense secretary, he begins the official confirmation process with a hearing before the Senate Armed Services Committee. It's already underway. It's been underway all morning. It's been going nonstop. There's a lot of talk about Hegseth qualifications, his time as a media personality, mistakes he may have made in his personal life, his personal military record. But true to form, the liberal press has glommed onto something that fits their favorite narrative. Horror of horrors, Hegseth has announced his support for restoring the historic names of U.S. military bases. Say it ain't so! Glorification of Confederate generals, it's racism! No, it's really not. Take a breath, Nancy. You see, first of all, Hegseth can't just do it unilaterally. Any naming conventions being changed would likely require congressional approval because the naming commission was actually authorized by Congress to do certain things. But there is a strong sentiment that the 9 bases that were renamed during Biden's tenure as president, they were a massive overreach, an erasing of history, if you will, a woke washing of culture. You heard me, a woke washing of culture. But the breathless liberal media smells a chance to get their racism mantra back in the forefront, and they are salivating at the chance. Let me tell you, in 1986, while I was a young cadet working towards my commission as an Army officer, I had my first foray to a place that became like a second home in many ways. I can still remember driving through the gates of Fort Benning, Georgia for the first time in August of 1986 to attend the U.S. Army Airborne School, and 3 weeks later I departed again wearing the silver wings of a paratrooper. I was hooked on that place. In many ways, I still am. Over the next 3 decades, I came and went from Fort Benning. I stayed at first in the troop barracks and scrubbed the floors and latrines to a high shine to pass inspection. Later, I stayed in the quads as a young lieutenant where I had my own room and felt like a real person, up to the point that I finally had a senior officer's billet and attended receptions at the beautiful antebellum house called Rightside, where every post commander has lived for the last 100 years. At Fort Benning, Georgia, I have tramped the woods, run the streets, dropped on the drop zones, sat in the classrooms, dined in the mess halls, and marched on the parade grounds. I have walked among the monuments to past paratroopers and rangers and infantrymen and marveled at what they must have gone through. I was trained there at Fort Benning to become a paratrooper, a jump master, an infantry officer, a pathfinder. Eventually, I attended the battalion commander's pre-command course there a few years before I retired. While I was at Benning, I was sworn into the Order of St. Maurice, and later in life I had the absolute unbelievable honor of going there again to pin paratrooper wings on my own son and watch him graduate from his own basic officer's course later. To say that Fort Benning, now Fort Moore, has been a part of my life is an understatement. And you know what? In all the years of sweat and toil and learning and leading at Fort Benning, Georgia, I never once felt like it was an oppressive place because it had the name Benning. I'm going to bet there's a bunch of you in this audience who've had Fort Benning in your life at some point, and like me, I'm going to bet that it never once crossed your mind that the name Benning came from a Confederate general. You know why? Because the Army is not racist, and no one who ever trained at Fort Benning was ever oppressed by its name. But the woke washing of America over the past few years foisted the belief on us that a part of what made the U.S. Army miss its recruiting goals and become less combat effective was that bases like Benning and Bragg and Rucker and Stewart and Hood had oppressive names. General Jack Keane, he said that in all the years that troops have trained at Benning that no one was ever impacted by the name because no one was there to focus on the name. No one ever even knew. But the Department of Defense Naming Commission spent millions of dollars to rename every street, post, base monument, building, parade field, and latrine that in many ways could be connected to the name of someone who served in the Confederacy over 150 years ago. The history of Fort Benning alone is significant. It was originally home to the major schools of the infantry. It branched into a maneuver warfare center in 2011 when they brought the armor school there too. You can't drive around Benning and not be awed by its history. From the mighty airborne towers, the statues and monuments, and the streets that are named for famous battles. Great leaders have been there like Dwight Eisenhower, George C. Marshall, David Grange, William Westmoreland, Colin Powell, H.R. McMaster, David Petraeus, Michael Flynn, and so many others. They've all served or trained there. And I would be quick to guess that none of them ever went through Benning feeling as though they had been oppressed because of the name. I doubt that any man of any color served at Benning and became less efficient as a leader of troops because of the name of the post. But the same woke washers that proclaimed climate change to be one of our key national security issues and forced the end of over 8,000 military careers for a COVID vaccine mandate, they determined it was necessary to spend $21 million to change the name. Names changed to signify to generations to come that we had a problem we didn't even know we had. You see, when cancel culture decides that we have a solution in need of a problem, they will turn to the specter of racism as one of their pieces of low-hanging fruit, whether it really exists or not. The question that we must ask ourselves, though, is where does it end? I mean, Do we now need to go take books off of shelves that discuss the history of the Confederacy? Do we need the National Park Service to close down the battlefields at Chancellorsville and Manassas and Richmond and Kennesaw, since those are parks on sites where the Confederacy actually won battles? Is it time for the state of Alabama to rename Lee County, or to revisit the existence of the Port of Mobile, since, the Battle of Mobile Bay took place there? Or even close down the state capitol building in Montgomery, since Jefferson Davis once stood on its steps to be sworn in as president of the Confederacy? Should the state of Tennessee disavow the Battle of Lookout Mountain or Missionary Ridge? Look, the part of history that the naming convention has overlooked is that the naming of Southern bases and Army posts using names of Confederate officers, that was done not to honor them so much as it was to extend an olive branch to the populace in the wake of Reconstruction. There were still many survivors of the war between the states when those posts were first originated. The War Department determined to show the populace in those areas that it was a new day, that there was grace and forgiveness, a moving forward together. It was well received. And for over 100 years, there's been no question, and Benning was a hero factory, producing legends of all races, creeds, and colors who may have come into the Army looking one way when they got there, but they all left the same color of green, speaking the same language. My father, who was a career Army officer himself, he told me once how proud he was that the Army was the first true melting pot of society where any person could rise through the ranks. Some of the new names are tied to actual legends that I do respect, not the least of which is Fort Benning, which was renamed in honor of Lieutenant General Hal Moore, who was memorialized for his heroic leadership in the Idrang Valley in Vietnam. But some of the names, like Fort Bragg being rebranded as Fort Liberty, just seem lame. I mean, they could have at least named the fort as Fort Bragg as Fort Gavin, after the legendary paratrooper General James Gavin, who made 4 combat jumps with the 82nd Airborne in World War II. But, whatever. Here's an idea. How about Congress authorize the naming of the bases to be revested into the states that host them, with strong deference then being given to the local communities where the bases and posts are actually located, and then allow the local folks to have a true say in it all. Not some nameless woke-washing politician from D.C. who doesn't care about your local feelings. So if the people of Fayetteville, North Carolina want to keep the name Fort Liberty, fine. But if they want to bring back the name Fort Bragg, let it be their choice. Fort Moore? Maybe you bring it back to Fort Benning. And if they did, the world wouldn't end. Slavery would not suddenly be reinstituted. Young men and women of all races would still go there and become warriors, and not a one of them would care about the name. But maybe I'm just nostalgic, or maybe I'm old-fashioned or stuck in my ways, but it'll always be Fort Benning to me, and in my memories. The home of the airborne and the infantry, queen of battle. I look forward to the day that our U.S. military is taken off the list of social experimentation projects and returned to its rightful place as the greatest warfighting entity in the history of the world, no matter what the bases are named. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, exactly 2 years ago today, I did a similar monologue where I titled it Goodbye, Fort Benning, because at that point, I thought that it was going away forever. Hearing Pete Hegseth give his opening statements today gave me hope that the woke washing of our military is over, and we can get back to being warriors again. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades in here. That's what we're doing. Yeah, Pete Hegseth, it's ongoing right now, even as we speak. And boy, it's been a circus, too. Let me just tell you. Hey, by the way, the text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it, same number for both. I'll go to the phones here momentarily, but let me real quick just remind you guys. So Attorney Stan McDonald, he is the sponsor of the daily Rightside Way monologue. Attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. I know him personally. I think the world of him. Not only is Stan the kind of guy who's going to advocate and fight for your legal needs, y'all, he is also somebody who's been an absolute warrior for causes that are near and dear to the right side ruffian community. So Attorney Stan McDonald, he's represented his clients in like literally thousands of real estate transactions. He can represent you in local, state, and federal courts. I like to say when Stan McDonald's on your side, you will have no greater friend, and likewise, your adversary will have no greater foe. So, yeah, Attorney Stan McDonald, law firm of Wilmer and Lee. Here's how you reach him. You ready? He's an America First family man. He's a strong attorney. Stan McDonald, the phone number is 256-479-3020. That's Attorney Stan McDonald, law firm of Wilmer and Lee, 256-479-3020. And oh, by the way, tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And oh, by the way, here's that ridiculous thing I have to do now. No representation made. The quality legal stories we form great quality legal stories for the lawyers. Ta-da! Hey, let me go to the phones real quick if I run out of time. Brian from Huntsville. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Doing pretty well, but the law firm of Wilmer and Lee and everything, nobody's pressured them into changing the name yet?
I don't know. That's a great question. I guess they're not publicly owned.
Well, but then there was that about 7 years ago, there was the gentleman named Robert Lee who happened to be of Oriental descent, full U.S. citizen. ESPN pulled him out of a announcement, even though he's only part-time, and they said it was for his safety based on his name.
That's just unreal, man.
Even though you go back and look at a picture, he's obviously of Oriental descent.
Yeah.
So,
go figure.
Where do we? And we had a tank in World War II called the Lee.
Yes, we did.
Are they renaming all those that are sitting in museums?
And it was equal play. We had Lees and we had Shermans.
And Sheridan's
Later
on.
That's right. Yep. Hey, let me ask you something, man. In all your years, I mean, I would imagine that you trained at Benning or Stewart or someplace like that. Did you ever train at one of those nasty Confederate camps?
No, I was not. Knox and Bliss.
Knox and Bliss. All right. Well, I was just going to say that if you were there, I hope that you didn't feel oppressed while you were within the confines of the post.
The only thing I felt oppressed about was when I lost leave if I did something stupid.
Nice. All right, man. Appreciate your service as always.
Y'all have a good one.
Take care, buddy.
Thanks, sir. Goodbye.
Text lines. Yeah, Jeff from Indiana is texting and he says, Phil, if everyone's worried about having things, if the government named after Confederates or racists, then I believe we ought to petition the state of West Virginia to rename everything that Robert KKK Byrd had his name on because the former Democratic senator was a member of the KKK himself. Yes, he was. And yes, you're right. But he was one of theirs. John Boy from Coleman is checking in. We got you down, man. Appreciate you. He says, 194, are you smoking Cheerios? Sergeant Creel, Black Hat, Fort Are you smoking Cheerios, boy? Get over here. Get in the front lane and rest. That's what I'm sure you heard more than once. John from Coleman, appreciate you. Thanks for your service. Brian from Huntsville again says, not to get the triple dipper in, I foresee a new Star Trek movie, The Wrath of John. Yes, it will be true. And lastly, Cameron from Decatur says, wokeness may be dying, but Huntsville has supported the new DEI officer. Holy crap. All right, listen, more calls and texts, and we'll jump on it when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. I'm talking about going to Huntsville over to Chattanooga, Tuscaloosa to Gadsden, big old patches of Georgia and Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Yeah, and by the way, really excited about the fact day 2 in Chattanooga, live on WGOW 1150 AM. We're glad to be with you. All y'all in East Tennessee, Northwest Georgia, and that corner of Northeast Alabama that we couldn't quite get because of Sand Mountain and the others. We're glad to be with you. So thank you very much for joining the Rightside Ruffian audience. Somebody who's an OG ruffian, been with us since back in the day. Steve from Tennessee is on line 1. Hey man, how are you?
I'm doing good, Phil. I hadn't talked to you in forever. I hate to bother you with calls, but I love your show and enjoy texting. But going to share something funny. In 1984, I was a brand new first lieutenant junior grade in the Navy with the Seabees, and we were there doing construction projects, and my command master chief was there, and he was a very combat-ready looking, tall, lanky, I mean, really military, squared-away, totally guy. We were going around in our khakis doing project P&E, looking at planning, estimation, all that. And it was getting about noontime, and he said, Lieutenant, let's just drop in here and eat at this chow hall. He said, we got more to do, and he said, we can get here quick, get out of the way. We walked in there, and as soon as we stepped in the door, somebody hollered, "Hey!" The whole place jumped up. I mean, everybody. I looked at him with that what in the world look. He looked at me just sternly, didn't say a word. We walked in one side, right out the other. We got out the other side. I said, what in the world just happened? He said, Lieutenant, they saw those 2 stars above my Master Chief's anchor and thought I was a 2-star and you were my age. We're not going to disappoint them. He said, let's go eat at Burger King.
Nice.
That's what we did. It was hilarious.
You know what, though? Take it and run,
agree.
brother.
Hey, listen, I totally agree with you that jacking with the names of these bases, I never gave it one thought who Benning was. Yeah. And I honor Colonel Moore or General Moore or whatever. I mean, he's awesome. I've read the books. I know the stories. And if they left it Moore, okay, that's fine too. But to mess with those names for that purpose is just sickening.
Yeah, it really was. Thanks, man. Hey, appreciate your CB service. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Wow. Good call. Good call. That, by the way, that reminds me, JP, you'll appreciate this. So, for those of y'all that don't know, JP sitting in the studio right now is my nephew. Your granddaddy, my dad. Great story. So when he was a second lieutenant, he told me, I've forgotten when he told me. I'd forgotten about it till Steve from Tennessee just told me that story. He was in Korea in like 1962-ish, and he said he was sitting in the mess tent drinking a cup of coffee trying to fill out his daily reports, and he said he's the only one in the whole mess tent. He's just taking advantage of the fact there was a table, and he's sitting there, and all of a sudden, a general walks in, and he's the only one in the room or the tent. So he has to kind of spring to his feet. At ease, Lieutenant, carry on. Well, the general takes off his helmet, which has the star on it, and puts it on the rack and walks over to get something to eat or a cup of coffee or whatever. And so my dad's words to me were, when a general walks in and you're the only person there and you're a second lieutenant, you find a reason to leave.
Yeah.
He said, so I walked swiftly over to the rack, grabbed my helmet, and walked out to my Jeep where my driver was waiting. And he said, my driver came to attention real quick and then looked at me and said, "Sir, you need to go back right now." He was wearing the general's helmet with the stars on it.
That is
and
funny.
he said he turned around. So he turned around and walked back, and yes, the general was waiting for him when he got there. Well, Lieutenant, I see you've been promoted.
That's hilarious.
All right. Hey, listen, we're going to dive right on in here. So you guys feel free to text in or call in your thoughts, your feelings about the things we're going to cover. But military-minded is Dipper number 1. But I can't just dive right into the military issues. I have to dive into why the military is so necessary and vital to our national interests, and where are we right now on the world stage after 4 years of the Biden administration. Now, let me just paint a broad brush picture here. I pulled an article as a part of today's resources. The very first one I'll lead off with comes from Foreign Policy Magazine. When Foreign Policy Magazine writes, you would think that they're going to, have some like strong underlying basis for being able to write the things they do. Because after all, it's Foreign Policy Magazine. Heck of a thing when the day after Biden makes his big foreign policy speech at the State Department last night, trying to make the victory lap on the way out the door, which wound up being one of the lamest things I've ever seen, the Foreign Policy Magazine comes out with an article titled, "Biden Meant Well." If that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what does.
I think that could be the saying of the whole Biden presidency. Biden meant well.
I think there'll be times, though, we'll find out he didn't really mean well at all.
Yeah, there's that too.
Biden's ate up like a soup sandwich. How about that? That's what my instructor used to always say at airborne school. You are ate up like a soup sandwich. Get out of my AO. And that's we had to move out smartly. So, Foreign Policy Magazine. Biden meant well. Dateline last night. In a series of farewell addresses during his final week in office, U.S. President Joe Biden is making the case that he's left the United States much stronger than he found it. I saw your face. I saw your face over there. You're not playing poker today, apparently.
Yeah.
During his 4 years, the country has far outpaced Europe, he says. Left Russia, though, engulfed in a quagmire. Outperformed China economically? Surely. Hung on to global leadership. Oh, there you go. Yeah, so in a speech at the State Department on Monday, Biden, this is literally the way the speech went. In that usual kind of, I'm struggling to get through this kind of way. He says, it's a quote, he said, "During my presidency, I have increased America's power in every dimension." Okay, listen. The dimensions of power projection. Let's just do a quick recap here. You ready? The dimensions of power projection on the geopolitical stage come through an acronym called DIME, D-I-M-E. How many times have I said this on the show, but I'll have to do it again to give me some basis for where I'm going. So if DIME is the acronym, what does DIME stand for? It's diplomacy, information or intelligence, depending on who you talk to, military and economic. So the ability to project power by any administration is found in those things: diplomacy, intelligence, military, economics. Are we better on diplomacy? Well, let's see. There's China. There's the Middle East. The Abraham Accords fell apart. There's what else we got? We got tentative relationships now with European allies. France is still mad at us. Canada thinks we're silly. What else we got?
Russia
southern border. Yeah, Russia is just mad in general. Russia's not scared of us, but they're also pissed off at us. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's diplomacy. Oh God. Okay, what about intelligence or information? I don't know. Let's see. Did we know that China was flying balloons over our territory? Doubtful. Did we see it coming when the Houthis and all began launching missiles at our ships? How about what's going on? Listen, I could go on and on and on. Okay, how about military? Well, let's see. We had 40-year recruiting lows. We, for the first time ever, had the Heritage Foundation rank the U.S. military as unprepared. We had any number of readiness issues, and we've been outsourcing a lot of not outsourcing, but sending out a lot of our stockpiles to Ukraine. Well, crap, what's left? Economics. Do I have to go there? Have you seen the cost of bacon? 40-year inflation.
I think that may be the funniest one of him saying that the economy's great.
So the speech kind of went that way, right? You can look back to 2021 when he hadn't been in office but, a matter of months, and he decided to rip the Band-Aid off in Afghanistan. Now listen, as a veteran of Afghanistan myself, I have said many times I wanted the war to end. I was ready for it to end. 20 years is a long time. But we were no longer in the same level of combat operations that we had been earlier on, and we also had a milestone-based withdrawal plan in place with Trump as opposed to a date on the calendar. Keep in mind, when you project milestones, that means certain things have to be accomplished before you will agree to leave. When you pin a date on the calendar, all the bad guys have to do is wait till that date is passed. And that's what the Taliban did. But what it did was immediately destabilize the world's confidence in the ability of the United States to be that bulwark against tyranny, that that firewall against overreach by malign actors worldwide. But Biden says, article from the Daily Wire, Dateline last night, I built the most competent foreign policy team in U.S. history. He is smoking something heavy. I don't know. Maybe it was his stuff they found in that little locker down there at the White House. But for him to say this, while we've been dealing with things like, we're still facing cyber attacks from communist China that they haven't punished China for. I mean, this is the stage on which the U.S. military comes into play. Because the SecDef and the SecState have to be able to cohabit the same arenas, right? Now, the military doesn't go there if state can get it done through diplomacy. But diplomacy only happens effectively if you have the clout of a strong military to back it. In other words, we want these things. Well, we can't do those things. Well, we have sanctions. That's the economics. We have the ability to establish trade relations. We have the ability to end trade relations. We have the ability to make your life very difficult financially, or we'll be glad to help you if you'll work with us. That's the economics. In the meantime, you got diplomacy. Well, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. Let's talk like that. We'll work on these things. You want to be supported at the UN, we'll support you on that, but you got to support us over here, with the trade agreements or whatever. Diplomacy. Intelligence. We have certain allies we swap intelligence with. We have some folks in the world stage we won't trade a thing with. But we spy on them and we know they try to spy on us. Do we do it effectively? And at the same time, you got the military. And that's where we're focusing today, because the full opportunity to project power on the world stage comes with all aspects of dime being included, period. And if the military is out, then guess what? You don't have dime, you have die. I just made that up. That was really good. But it's true. If you don't have the ability to project force, then the people who you're trying to negotiate with see no reason to have to worry about it. It's just that's the way the world works. It's reality. To say otherwise is to be foolish, to be feckless. But that's where we've been for the last 4 years. Now listen, I'll tell you, Jake Sullivan has been the National Security Advisor. I'm not sure how much he got paid. But over the weekend, Jake Sullivan, according to townhall.com, gave an interview in which he said, I think the American people are safer and the country is better off than we were 4 years ago. Well, Jake, I'm glad you feel that way. But I think that the people in New Orleans who just watched 14 die and 35 wounded by someone who was inspired by ISIS would probably say otherwise. We can look at Middle East chaos. You can look at Ukraine dragging along. We can look at, everybody and their mother knowing that Joe Biden can't find his way on or off the stage sometimes without help. Iranian proxies have been doing all kinds of stuff that caused Israel to have to go out and go full force. But no, I would dare say that the power projection on the world stage has not been what it could be, should be, or ought to be in the last 4 years. When we get back from this break, though, I'm gonna start with dissecting some commentary by General Jack Keane, who says some of the same things that I'm saying here, talking about the world stage and why we should look at the Biden administration as a failed administration when it comes to foreign policy. And then we're going to dive into Pete Hegseth and what's happening up today and where's our U.S. military going with him as a secretary. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, so we're back on Dipper number one. I'm calling it military-minded, but I had to lay the foundation for it by talking about Biden's foreign policy or the lack thereof. In fact, I would have to say that there was not truly a Biden doctrine. Does anybody know what it was? I don't.
The Biden staffer doctrine, maybe?
Maybe. The Biden doctrine is usually I've actually done a whole monologue or something on this in the past where usually you can look at an administration and they will either declare the doctrine or you can see the doctrine. But in Biden's case, I don't know what that would be. I don't recall ever seeing a foreign policy doctrine declared. I don't recall seeing anything that said, and this will be the overarching principle. For instance, the Trump doctrine is going to wind up being America first. So the interests of the United States, which shouldn't have to be said, but the interests of the United States are going to be the overarching factor in the decisions made to guide the Trump administration's foreign policy. Mexico wants trade relations. What's America getting out of it? Canada wants better trade relations. What's America getting out of it? Russia wants us to back off Ukraine. What's America getting out of it? The Middle East, Iran wants us to quit trying to help Israel. Not going to happen because America's interests are vested in Israel. On and on and on. America first. You can look and you can find the Reagan doctrine. You can find the Bush doctrine. You can find the Monroe doctrine. You can find all of you. You're about to say that, weren't you?
Monroe doctrine. Yeah.
So General Jack Keane, and we may not have time. We're not going to have time for the whole thing. We're going to this is one of those segments, JP, where I want to play it, stop it, play it, stop it. But and it starts at the 110 mark. You got that on Dipper one? Okay. So this is General Jack Keane talking about the Biden military and foreign policy legacy. He was on Martha McCallum on Fox News. General Keane is probably one of my favorite military commentators. His credibility is unparalleled. Let's go ahead and just start it, and then I'll tell you when to stop. Go ahead.
It was just absolutely stunning. It's amazing to me how some politicians and national leaders can absolutely take the facts and just turn them all around and present something that's completely different. I mean, when it comes to foreign policy and national security, I don't say this lightly. The president has a failed presidency, and that's the reality of it. When the facts speak for themselves, let's start with what you started with, Russia. President Trump provided lethal aid to help the Ukrainians when he was in his presidency, and he told Putin that there would be severe consequences. He told him personally if he invaded Ukraine. And he never budged to do it. That first clip you showed was February of 21. In March of 21, 60 days into the Biden presidency, Putin put 70,000 troops on the border of Ukraine. The president is asked the question, what are you going to do about it? His answer is, I'm not going to do anything because I don't want to provoke him. Second question, what if he does go into Ukraine? What will you do then? It depends on how much territory he takes. Putin was testing Biden. Is he the same as he knew when he was part of the Obama administration? Is he different than Trump, who I've been dealing with for 4 years? Putin got his answer. It on Biden's back that Putin takes the initiative and goes into Ukraine, and the catalyst of the failure in Afghanistan certainly underscored the rationale that he was going to do it.
All right, stop right there. I'm going to stop right there and I'll say this: the springboard for foreign policy failure around the world became the debacle of a pullout in Afghanistan. And again, I wanted the war to end, and I'm a veteran of Afghanistan. I wanted the war to end, but you know what? You don't end it like that, because how you leave is sometimes just as important as how you arrived. And the manner in which the chaotic, ill-conceived, deadly debacle of a pullout in Afghanistan launched itself into the worldview is the gateway for the problems that we're seeing right now. Suddenly, Iran was emboldened. Suddenly, Russia was emboldened. Suddenly, the Abraham Accords began to falter. Suddenly, we had all these things happening, and they all came on the heels of one of the worst foreign policy and military disasters in modern history. And that was the manner in which the Biden administration fecklessly threw aside 20 years of blood and treasure. Was everything in Afghanistan perfect? No. Was it time to leave? Very likely. Leave like that? My God, no. We'll talk about more of this when we get back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee's news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, listen, this audience that we've got, you guys are amazing. And I know, by the way, because I know the areas in which we're on the air. I know what a military-minded community we have. That was the whole focus of this. I mean, I could just as easily just talk about it in glossy, one over the world kind of view. But y'all need to know that what's happening right now in D.C. has a massive impact on places like Redstone Arsenal, or like Anniston Army Depot, or like Fort Benning, Fort Moore, Georgia, all within our listening range. You know, folks right now that are in Northwest Georgia know for a fact that the military installations in their state drive parts of the economy in their state, the same as they do in Alabama, the same as they do in Tennessee. I mean, Fort Campbell is on the border of Tennessee and Kentucky. Massive installation. And that doesn't even take into account the number of Reserve and National Guard training centers that are located in all these states. Everything that we're talking about right now is about to be impacted by the hearing that's happening today. And all of it trickles down, if you will, from a Trump doctrine that says America first, and replacing sort of a feckless social experimentation. The military is that thing I got to take care of because it's just, part of being commander in chief, to a priority on being warfighters and having honor and integrity and a warrior ethos. And I tell you, today, Pete Hegseth gave his opening statements. In a little while, we'll play parts of the hearings. I will say this. Thank you, JP, for helping me with this. But on my social media right now, at Sin Phil Williams on X, at SEN Phil Williams. If you are on Twitter, X, follow me there, or Rightside Media is on there. We posted a long string with some of the best excerpts from the hearing thus far. It's still going on. But the reality is there were some soundbite moments, y'all, let me just tell you. But one of the best, in my opinion, were the opening statements of Pete Hegseth himself. I mean, to the point that it fired me up. Okay, where do I re-enlist? How do I go? But, I mean, he talked about exactly what I said a moment ago, about reinstilling the pride and the vigor of the U.S. military, about putting us back into a position where it's about being warfighters and having that warrior ethos and caring about the soldiers' needs and not the social experimentation and the agenda and the DEI and all of it. That climate change won't be the driving force in what we do. But go back again to the questions we have about where the world is right now and why it's so important. And when before the break, we were actually kind of commenting on comments that were made by General Jack Keane as he was interviewed by Martha McCallum. You got that queued up still again? All right, let's do this. A moment ago, he pointed out, General Keane did, that the debacle in Afghanistan was the catalyst for so much of what we're having to see and deal with now on the world stage. Pick it up from there.
The Middle East. In the Middle East, when Biden comes into power, Iran is reeling from the death of Qasem Soleimani and maximum sanctions that have been imposed on him, and the progress being made of the Abraham Accords. For the first time, we're starting to stitch together an Arab NATO that we've been talking about for years. What does Biden do? Stops the sanctions and tells the Iranians, I'm making this concession to you as a sign of good faith so we can get back into the nuclear deal. The Iranians read that as weakness. They stiff him on the nuclear deal. They take the money, and what do? They start to fuel ammunition and everything into their proxies. And what happened as a result of all of that? Iran operationalizes their proxies, and they go after Israel with a vengeance once and for all to destroy the state of Israel and drive the United States out of region. So here we have Biden in power, no war in Europe during the Trump administration, no war in the Middle East other than Trump taking down ISIS. And we have war in Europe with Putin threatening to expand it, war in the Middle East. And fortunately, the commander-in-chief is what I call him, Prime Minister Netanyahu, exercised and went after Hamas and Hezbollah and the Iranians in a way that no one else had ever done in 44 years. And he ignored Biden in doing it. Even in the Indo-Pacific theater, that military out there is outpacing the United States considerably. We have lost our ability to deter them militarily, and all sorts of war games and studies have proven that in a congressional commission I was on. What did we do? As opposed to building up the hard power so that diplomacy would be more effective, we issued flat budgets. There has been no defense increase in the Biden administration in 4 years, and we are way behind them. Does she know that? Yes. Is he more aggressive as a result of it? Yes. This is Biden's legacy, what I just described.
Stop it there. Wow, what an amazing set of comments. What an amazing. So, by the way, General Jack Keane, he's the founder and the CEO of the Institute for Modern War, and they have some of the best open source intel that you can find just going online to read updates on major world events and things and where they are, especially like the war in Ukraine. All of it, very solid, and his commentary is always very solid. And you don't have to agree with everything he says, but you cannot deny his bona fides as he gets out there and lays it out. But I think everything he just said is true. In fact, what's really interesting was when he labels, think about this, when he labels Netanyahu as the commander-in-chief, because he says that Netanyahu went after the attackers, Hamas, all the proxies of Iran, Hamas, the Houthis. He actually attacked the Houthis all the way over, on the far side. He attacks the Houthis. He's leveling Gaza right now. He's attacking Hezbollah in Syria. And Syria, now the Assad regime has fallen. And you look at all this thing, Netanyahu did that over the top of the Biden's protestations. What kind of foreign policy have we had? All right, now let's fast forward. Here we are today. Biden is taking a victory lap for what God knows. I don't understand. I don't know if Biden really believes the thing he says, or if he's just saying it hoping somebody else will believe it. Either way, it's jacked up. But the truth is, we have been in a difficult spot on the world stage. Every bad actor in the world feels like they can get a piece of us right now. The southern border is porous, and they know they can come across if they want to. Why? Because nobody's going to do anything. And that southern border is reminiscent of the other foreign policy failures that we have elsewhere. I look at every time Antony Blinken speaks, I just almost want to just say, would you please somebody poke him and make him talk like a man? Because he gets up there and he talks like a mortician, and he says, oh, he's sorry that we have to go down this road once again. And I mean, that's not how you represent the United States. And I look forward to Marco Rubio being Secretary of State, but I really look forward to Pete Hegseth being confirmed as Secretary of Defense. And here's the thing, y'all. Before we get to the break, I'll just say this. Here's the thing. I have now watched Pete Hegseth deliver cogent replies to vilifying attacks in the public eye, speaking off the cuff, able to recall events and using no notes doing it, delivering commentary with passion. And by the way, he even said at one point his focus is going to be on the troops. And he believes it's time to have somebody come in there who still has dust on their boots, who hasn't forgotten what it's like to be in the field. And he has been. 2 combat tours plus a tour in Gitmo. He has been. Do you know he actually retired as a major? You think that's the in-between time. Most folks either get out as a captain or a light colonel, if they're gonna stop short. He got out as a major. Why? Because as a National Guard officer, he was told that his tattoos banned him from being able to work security at the Trump inaugural in 2016. And he said, well, then I'm out of here. That's unbelievable. That's where, and he saw it, and he knew it was happening, and now he's back. How you like him now? His commentary today, I have to couple this with a couple of things before I go to the break. How about this? Trump's coming in, And all of a sudden, the Army's beginning to meet its recruiting goals. Pray tell, why would this be? Well, the Biden administration's done some great things to try and help recruiting because it's hard and things. It is. The Biden administration, I will give credit on one thing. They instituted a thing called the Future Soldier Prep Course for those who are struggling with the in-processing requirements, the physicals or the testing. They can go to I think it's like a 6-week course, and that's great. The only problem is they didn't plan it very well, and they're using up so many of the training beds now that they don't have enough space to bring recruits into basic training because a lot of those slots are being now filled for the Future Soldier Prep courses. But the prep courses are bringing more recruits into the ability to actually enter the active ranks. So like 1/4 of the 55,000 soldiers recruited last year went through one of those prep courses. Okay, I'll give them that. But we've still been at massive lows. And you cannot tell me that the cultural aspects, the wokeness, hasn't had an impact. The Afghanistan debacle hasn't destroyed morale. You can't tell me that didn't have a play. Well, all of a sudden, story here on military.com, which is not, by the way, a conservative bastion of news. Military.com, the Army is nearly halfway to meeting its ambitious goal of recruiting 61,000 soldiers. Now, keep in mind, they're on a fiscal year. They started in October. But they're what, 4 months in? 3 months? 3.5? And they now have 30,000 new enlistments already. That's great. Guess what? Everybody sees a new commander-in-chief coming. Majority of those recruits signed up after the election. How's that? Here's just something else to think about. There's a lot of talk right now in the news, but nothing guaranteed, that allegedly Hamas is entering into an agreement to release the hostages they've been holding for over a year. Because they wouldn't do it all this time. Guess what? Trump comes out, gets elected, and says, you release those hostages before I take office, or hell, there will be hell to pay. Guess what? All of a sudden, there's an agreement being forged.
It's funny how that works.
Leading from a position of strength with an America First doctrine. All right, when we get back from this break, I'll tell you about some things that began coming out today. And y'all, some of them are hilarious. I mean, I feel like an Adventure in Woke World segment happening here with the Pete Hegseth confirmation hearings, but there's also been some great moments where people got told what they needed to hear. You know what I'm saying? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, military-minded. Rangers lead the way. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. Listen, we have so many clips from this Pete Hegseth hearing today. But let's talk about things that can happen. I mean, like right here in our listening area, I mentioned that this is going to have an impact on Redstone Arsenal. One of the things that can have an impact on is what happens with Space Command. Guess who one of the decision makers is? The Secretary of Defense has a play in that. U.S. Space Command was supposed to have been based at Redstone Arsenal. It got pulled. And yeah, U.S. Senators Tommy Tuberville, Katie Britt, all of our delegation from Alabama. And oh, by the way, neighboring Tennessee really supports this too. I mean, my recollection is Marsha Blackburn has been very much in favor because you know why? There's a lot of people in southern Tennessee that drive into Huntsville and Redstone Arsenal for work.
Very much so.
A lot.
Like a lot of my classmates, their parents came in from up in, I guess it would be like Franklin, Tennessee.
Oh yeah. Well, Franklin's up closer to Nashville, but they were.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of Huntsville's population that work there.
Meridian and all that area. Yeah. Well, the bottom line is, what happens in today's hearing and the future confirmation votes on the floor of the Senate can have a major impact on this listening area, no matter whether you're in our Chattanooga affiliates, welcome Chattanooga, or in Huntsville or wherever. So Hegseth's on the Hill. Fiery hearings going on today. Let's talk about some of the things he's had to put up with. I mean, some of what he's had to put up with are people like Senator Mazie Hirono, who I think she was cooked today. Something was going on. I think she had a liquid breakfast before she came in. But she really decided that it was very important that the people. You got Mazie's? This is audio clip number 2. You got that one? No, this is number 3. Let's go to audio number 3. Mazie Hirono, Senator Mazie Hirono, taking Pete Hegseth to task about whether he would use the military to invade Greenland. Play it.
Would you use our military to take over Greenland or an ally of Denmark?
Senator, one of the things that President Trump is so good at is never strategically tipping his hand. And so I would never in this public forum give one way or another direct what orders the president would give me in any context.
That sounds to me that you would contemplate carrying out such an order to basically invade Greenland and take over the Panama Canal.
So I guess the Panama Canal is in Greenland now. That's what I just heard. She was stumbling her way through that. This is now, have there been substantive questions? Yes, there have. Have there been people that were for him? Oh, absolutely. Our Senator Tommy Tuberville, who's been on the show many times, has been one of the leading proponents of his confirmation. But y'all,
this is just a perfect example. It drives me nuts when the left doesn't understand, like, not saying things is not an endorsement of something. Like they're so bad at negotiating that they just air out everything to try to, please the media or whatever. Like that's why they're such bad negotiators, and that's why they can't get anything done.
And if Mazie Hirono was looking for a soundbite, she did not get it, by the way. She looked like an idiot. I mean, that was embarrassing. That's the kind of thing where her staff is in the background cringing, trying to figure out how to spin this. Because are you gonna invade Greenland? That's what I mean. Really?
I can't say. Okay, so you are? No, that's not what he said.
No.
It's so annoying.
No. And by the way, Trump's never said that either. Trump has just said he'd love to have Greenland. And oh, by the way, I'd love to have Greenland.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a strategic deterrence platform right there. That's an amazing spot. And it's underutilized and underappreciated. And meanwhile, Trump's right. China and Russia come sailing by it all the time. So maybe we ought to have some, forward projection bases there. Awesome. And then there was a whole lot said. So Pete Hegseth, like many people, has had problems in his life. I'm not going to excuse him. I'm not going to try to minimize him. He has had some infidelity in his life. Let's put it that way. And he's been very open about it. By the way, do you have his opening statement where he gave credit to the Lord?
I could pull that very easily, yes.
Go ahead and grab that first. So I will say this.
10 seconds, by the way.
Yeah, all right, I'll keep talking. I'll get 10 seconds till we go out. Oh, God. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. We're going to come back from this break, and I'm going to keep playing this for you because some of these clips are so worth hearing, but not the least of which is Pete Hegseth, who, yes, knows that he's a man with fault in his past, is not so unaware of himself that he can't acknowledge it, but he also knows where his faith lies, and I'll tell you that in a minute. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Right Side ruffians out there, you are listening to Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Like covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. I'm talking Huntsville over to Chattanooga. I'm talking Tuscaloosa over to Gadsden. I'm talking big old patches of Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in, just for good measure. Let me go to the phones real quick before I jump into the Pete Hegseth stuff. Jeff Rowe from Indiana is on the line. Jeff Rowe, you're calling in early, man. What's going on?
Oh, I'm finally going back up north and have to spend 3 hours in Falkville today, so I'm doing all right.
Well, good. You might get home in a decent hour.
Yeah, just wish I could catch back up to this 53 cream-colored Corvette with a red interior convertible just passed me.
Nice.
Oh, man.
Nice. Well, what you think about all this stuff, man? I've been talking about the Pete Hegseth hearing today. I've been talking about world, position of the United States under the Biden administration. What are your thoughts?
On the Pete Hegseth thing, these senators, these Democrat senators, get up there and ask him questions and everything. Yeah. If there wasn't such a thing as decorum, I would look them straight in the eye and say, Senator, I don't think you have the intelligence to ask me such a question because you couldn't even tell that your president, Joe Biden, is dementia. Everybody was sitting there telling him how wonderful he is and backing him up and how smart he was and how he gets everything done and stuff. I'm thinking, your qualifications to judge me are pretty dismal at this point.
I would totally agree. I tell you what, though, he didn't have to because he did have some people that were keyed up and ready to speak on his behalf on the panel. Did you hear the comments made by Senator Markwayne Mullin from Oklahoma?
No, I must have missed that one.
Oh, you're going to hear it here in a few minutes, brother. I mean, he came out hard, and he basically said, how dare y'all say the things in his personal life? He said, you can look around the Senate and see the exact same things. And it was like a total dressing down.
What was it? Connecticut senator, the one that had the stolen valor, what's his name?
Oh, yeah. Was it Blumenthal?
Yeah, Blumenthal. Sit there and doing all this stuff and everything. I'm thinking, my gosh, is the pot calling the kettle black again?
Yes.
I can't imagine somebody like with a record like his would sit there and even stick his neck out and say a word. It's like
when he lied about service in Vietnam. He lied about service in Vietnam, didn't he?
Yeah. He said he was here, there, and yonder, and he found out he wasn't nowhere near there, and stuff. I don't even think he had any combat experience, So yeah, he's wanted to speak about all this stuff, and I wish our Republicans would put him in his place. That's the problem. When somebody says something stupid like that and comes out against somebody, our Republicans should have a backbone to say, Senator Blumenthal, you really have a lot of room to speak there, and just put him in his place.
Well, tell you what, you're gonna hear that in a few minutes, and it's gonna be enjoyable. Just brace yourself because between Markwayne Mullin and Tommy Tuberville's comments, it was a hoot at times. It's also the kind of thing where you sit there just going, yeah, somebody finally said it.
Yeah, and another senator was sitting there asking him questions, about how come all these unnormed sources saying all these things about him and stuff, and who are these people? Who are these people? And I would have looked at him saying, well, Senator, you're one of them, right now by saying what you're saying.
All right, man. Well, let me get on it. I'll play some clips you'll enjoy. You be safe on the road, all right?
Have a good one, Phil.
We'll see you, buddy. Let's do this. Let's start with Pete Hegseth himself. Is he a perfect man? No, but he knows it. He is not somebody who is so self-unaware that he can't acknowledge that he's got problems, and he's also got something that is bigger than himself that guides what he does. I'm of the personal belief that you can't say Jesus is Lord unless you actually believe it. Now, making him Lord of your everyday life is still a thing that we have to work and strive for, but we're also not a works-based salvation. And Pete Hegseth gave an unabashed credit to the Lord for why he's even able to be there today. Play that.
And as Jenny and I pray together every morning, all glory, regardless of the outcome, belongs to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. His grace and mercy abounds each day. May his will be done. That's
a heck of a way to capstone your comments, right? He went on to say some things, though, that just fired me up. Everything I would want to hear from someone who's going to be in the position that has authority over my status as a veteran under the VA, or the memories of my father and grandfather, or my son who's on active duty now, were said today in his opening comments. Now, some of the things that were said to him, I played you Maisie Hirano a while ago. Woo! She was a loop-de-loo. And then Elizabeth Warren got busy. Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, who can represent herself as anything she wants to get whatever she wants, but God forbid somebody else would step in there who doesn't have a D by their name, and she'll have at it. So Elizabeth Warren tried to have fun with him, trying to claim that he was going to use this as a springboard to go out there and get the big jobs after he leaves the secretary's position. Come on. Here's how that went, followed by, oh, by the way, Tommy Tuberville coming in right after her. Go ahead and play it.
You're quite sure
that
every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. But you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. So you're saying sauce for the goose, but certainly not sauce for the gander?
I would want to see what the policy of the president
I'll bet you would.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Senator Tuberville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for your hard work and your committee's hard work, Mr. Chairman. This has gone well. I'd like to submit this letter, topic Conduct at Vets for Freedom for Hegseth. I'd like to submit that for the record, please.
Without objection.
General Hegseth, Mr. Hegseth, thanks for being here today and with your family. I know this is tough. That's what it's all about, though. You're a tough guy.
That was a great moment. The levity there was one thing I did notice. Now, Hegseth, every time I watched it, he stayed calm and cool. I don't know what was going on inside his heart and mind. I mean, maybe this was a nerve-wracking day. Maybe it was something, but he looked like he was in command of his faculties all day long.
I think that alone is a good enough endorsement for him. The fact that he was able to be composed and take the pushback. I mean, it was fiery pushback too from the Democrats, like going after his personal life.
Oh yeah,
and he was able to stay composed and with it. I think that's worthy of endorsement in itself.
And listen, I'm not saying they shouldn't ask questions about their personal lives, but the way they did it today,
there's a difference in questions and attacks.
Yeah, there's questions, there's attacks, there's statements, and then there's demeaning, derogatory kind of stuff. I mean, they literally tried to tear him down. And then Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, I'm going to go with audio number 2 on this one. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen gave a complete dressing down to the Democrats who were there and called them out hard for it. And this is to me maybe one of my favorite moments out of all of it. Go ahead and play it.
There's a lot about qualifications, and I think it's so hypocritical of senators, especially on the other side of the aisle, be talking about his qualifications, not going to lead the secretary or be the Secretary of Defense, and yet your qualifications aren't any better. You guys aren't any more qualified to be the senator than I'm qualified to be the senator, except we're lucky enough to be here. But let me read you what the qualifications of the Secretary of Defense is, because I Googled it, and went through a lot of different sites, and really it's hard to see. But in general, the U.S. Secretary of Defense position is filled by a civilian. That's it. If you have served in the U.S. Army Forces and have been in the service for, you have to be retired for at least 7 years, and Congress can weigh that. And then there's questions that the senator from Massachusetts brought up about serving on a board inside the military industry, and yet your own secretary that you all voted for, Secretary of Austin, we had to vote on a waiver because he stepped off the board of Raytheon.
Exactly.
But I guess that's okay because that's a Democrat Secretary of Defense. But you so quickly forget about that, and then Senator Keane, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. but it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too. I have changed, but I'm not perfect. But I found somebody that thought I was perfect. And for whatever reason, you love Pete, and I don't know why. But just like our Lord and Savior forgave me, my wife's had to forgive me more than once too, and I'm sure you've had to forgive him too. And so thank you.
That's a great line, a set of lines. I mean, that's just amazing. And by the way, if and I know that doesn't translate in radio, but he was not reviewing notes. He was speaking from the heart. And I'm telling you, man, that's the kind of stuff that we need more of in D.C. We need to hear more commentary like that. Just saying. I mean, just wow. Now listen. And when we come back, I'm going to begin to wrap this up because I want to turn it to, okay, so he gets confirmed, then what? What can we expect out of a Secretary Hegseth? What can we expect to see that will do the things that we hope will happen to our U.S. military? All right, we're going to come back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, Military Minded. That's where we are today. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Dropping truth bombs. That's what we're doing. So Pete Hegseth is up there today. His opening statements were amazing to me. And if you get a chance to watch them, I would encourage you to do so. Now, they were interrupted multiple times by protesters, which is just, it's crazy to me that people can come in there and scream and yell and protest, but they got hauled out. So there's that.
Can I just say how they got hauled out was funny? I saw one dude being held up by his legs, and
they actually picked him up and bodily carried him out. Yeah. It was like they'd wait. Okay, 2 more minutes, go. And they would.
Yeah, they all got out. They didn't spread them out. They all got out in his opening remarks. So it was poor, management on their end. They all got out like right when it started.
I suspect this is not the last time we're going to see some of them coming through. But in his opening statement, though, he said he had 3 top missions. Hegseth. So what can we expect? What do we look for in a potential Secretary Hegseth as a SecDef? 3 top missions, he said, for the Pentagon: restore the warrior ethos, rebuild our military, and reestablish deterrence. I loved it, man. He spoke of peace through strength. He talked about the warrior ethos. The warrior ethos for the U.S. Army, by the way, is I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade. I think the rank and file gets that, but the rank and file is not being led that by the upper brass. I mean, there's been a moving away from so much of what makes us strong, fit, lean, and mean, able to go and do hard things in hard places. So restoring those things, how's he going to do this? Some of the ways he says he's going to do it, besides restoring the warrior ethos to the Pentagon itself, not just making it a bureaucracy, but making it a war-fighting command element. He also says he's going to provide new defense companies with better shots at winning contracts. So what does that mean? Well, there's this sense right now that if you're not part of the good old boy super system of defense contractors, that you can't break in. You'll never get a contract. You're destined to have to be the sub, if anything, for decades. He's going to make sure that the smaller companies get a chance to do things that they're good at. He's going to, which by the way creates innovation. He also says he's going to be pushing for the rapid deployment of emerging technologies. In other words, not waiting on something to be developed over a legacy of research for like 50 years. And then he said this about himself. He said, I don't have a similar biography to defense secretaries of the last 30 years. By the way, he's got a good biography. He said, I don't have a similar biography to defense secretaries for the last 30 years, but as President Trump told me, we've repeatedly placed people atop the Pentagon with supposedly the right credentials. Retired generals, academics, defense contractor executives, and where has it gotten us? He said, it's time to give someone with dust on their boots a chance at the helm, a change agent, he said. He said, we are American warriors. Our standards will be high and they will be equal, not equitable. I love that line. He said, we're going to make sure every warrior is fully qualified on their assigned weapon. Every pilot's fully qualified on the aircraft they're flying. Every general or flag officer selected for leadership is based purely on performance and readiness and merit. No more glass ceilings. I'm for that, man. I'm so sick of seeing glass ceilings broken once again by flag officers. We don't care. As my son, my grandson, anybody in my sphere are going to be led by people that I trust to do the job. Listen, this all happened today, and this is all, it's coming down the pike, and we're going to see more. And, and right out the bat, we got Lloyd Austin, who is trying to defend things and saying the military's not woke. That's not what's happening. Okay, I got news. It really is. Why do you think today hundreds of Navy SEALs and other veterans marched in D.C. to support Hegseth's confirmation as defense secretary? And why is it that Politico, Phil, did you go to Politico? I did. Why do you think Politico ran an article almost exactly 30 days ago, saying that military leaders are now rattled because a list of so-called woke senior officers has been talked about as being those that will be dismissed by Pete Hegseth for promoting diversity and equity and inclusion in the ranks if he's confirmed to the Pentagon? I got news, man. This is exactly why we voted for Trump. And I'll be the first to admit, when I heard Hegseth's name, I was like, the TV guy? I knew he was in the Army, but really? So I did my own digging, and I encourage you to do the same. Degrees from Princeton and I think Harvard, if I'm not mistaken. I got to go back and look. Time spent in combat as a troop leader, an infantry officer. He had any number of leadership evaluation reports or officer evaluation reports that came out glowing. He also went on to be a career guy at the helm of Concerned Veterans of America, which is a national level organization. And then he's been on I would say almost the world stage with his position at Fox. I heard him speak personally and got a chance to shake his hand in a receiving line when he was here in Alabama a few years ago. And the guy just comes across as fairly genuine. But the reality is, he's on the record. He's an open book. He's written a book. You can go read it. And so if you wonder where he stands on the issues, well, he's out there. He's not going to be the guy that comes in who's been working quietly in the defense industry or, retired 3 years ago after being in the command and no one knows where he stands on the policies. This dude is a solid Republican. He's a unabashed, born-again Christian who says, God has changed my life. And he's somebody who loves this country and says he is absolutely going to be a change agent in the Pentagon. And I got news. We need some agents of change in the Pentagon. All right, that's that. I'll take text messages when we get back from this break. Y'all, I'm telling you, you guys have been some texting machines, and I got to catch up. The number's 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. Yeah. How do you feel about it? Military-minded. Are we heading in a good direction with this? Or are you worried about it? I'd love to know. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international, and oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Taco Tuesday, and now I'm hungry because I had to say something about food. But yeah, welcome to hour number 3. We've spent almost the entire show so far doing Dipper number 1, which is military-minded. I even did my monologue. By the way, if you missed the monologue, I just encourage you to go look at it. I did the whole thing on the fallacy of the base renaming. And granted, there's some key people that now have their names emblazoned on the front gates of various posts, but I'm not taking away from their memory by saying that wasn't necessary and it didn't change readiness. And you can say it's symbolic all you want, but nobody who ever trained at places like Fort Benning or Fort Hood or Fort Stewart or Fort Lee even knew at all that there was a Confederate name attached to it. It was just woke washing. So yeah, woke washing. Go check it out. That's you can always catch our the different parts of the show you might have missed. You can go to the podcast. We podcast the show every single day. How many downloads has that thing got now? Like 280,000 or something like that now, downloads on the podcast?
We are at 274,000 all-time downloads.
74,000. By the way, we got a lot of things out there you might want to check out. A bunch of you guys are streaming the show today. Just know this, we are live on multiple radio stations, obviously out of the Huntsville market, Chattanooga, but we also stream the show live, audio and video today, every day. And you can watch us on X at Rightside Media or at my account at Phil Williams. You can watch us on YouTube. You can watch us on Rumble, Twitch. You can watch us through our website, which has also got a lot of other stuff on it, rightsidemedia.org. That's where all our podcasts and written stuff is and live stream of the show. Anyway, all I'm saying is we're all over the place. But here's the thing. We are a growing company. I mean, we're seeing expansion. I had a discussion today with another radio station that hopefully I'll have an announcement about in the near future. But that being said, Rightside Media is the parent company. We got a lot of stuff happening. And we would love to continue growing, but the only way we grow is with y'all. So if you go to one of those platforms like YouTube, for instance, if you would hit subscribe, it means the world to us, because what actually happens is the more subscribers you have or followers you have on the various platforms, those platforms actually open up doors for our business to be able to do more. So as we grow, we need your help. We'd appreciate you hitting follow or subscribe or like or whatever the case may be. In the meantime, thank you very much. Hey, I got a bunch of text messages from a bunch of y'all. Let's see what we got down in here. I'm going to scroll back a little bit because there were some that were texting earlier in the show and I didn't get to them yet. Bruce from Springville said, here's a new acronym that Biden accomplished. SFN. Styrofoam for neurons. Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Dave from Madison said the Biden doctrine. How much you paying me? That's the Biden doctrine. How much you paying me? I like it. I don't like it, but you know what I'm saying.
It's fitting.
It is fitting.
Yep.
So how much is in there? How much you going to pay? There's the Biden doctrine. Jerry from Decatur says Biden's whole deal was to project the U.S. as weak and destroy military pride, hence the renaming of military installations. He says, I have one for you. Let's rename Scranton, PA, the Abbey Gate, PA, the place where stupid was born. Wow. Abbey Gate. Abbey Gate being the Abbey Gate at Kabul Airport, where 13 service members died in the debacle pullout from it. By the way, 13 service members and 170 Afghans. Y'all, it was a huge deal.
Just the video of the people like clinging on to the airplane wings,
Yeah.
like that is pure desperation.
Yeah.
And the blood it's not an understatement to say the blood is on the Biden administration's hands for that.
Absolutely.
By the way, we had 4 or 5 YouTube comments, if you don't mind.
What you got?
Mention some of those. Chris G from Madison, he commented. He said that he would love to see Pete become the SecDef and reshape the U.S. military into the elite force it was in the 1980s and 1990s.
Sweet.
Donald Beamer, he commented that Hegseth taking the Senate committee head on, heated at times but holding his own. Pete is a breath of fresh air. I hope and pray he gets confirmed. Christy from Madison also commented again that says she needs to be put to pasture. An American-hating senator from the bizarro world of modern woke broke Hawaii. And then Dustin, I'm not sure what he means by this comment, but he said that, will this be the whole hearing or just the confirmation vote?
This will be just so they have, thank you. It's a great question. So the process here is the various nominees go before the various committees to which their service will be related. In this case, as a SecDef, Pete is before the Senate Armed Services Committee. You'll have Pam Bondi for Attorney General going before the Senate Judiciary Committee. So they all go to their subcommittees for their grilling, if you will. And then the committee then takes a vote to support or not support them as the nominee, and that gets reported out to the larger body. Assuming a favorable report, which we believe he'll get because we have a majority on the Senate Armed Services Committee, assuming a favorable report, Hegseth then comes to a vote of the larger body for confirmation. So that's the way this works. You're having a confirmation hearing now, a true confirmation vote later, but the procedural hurdle is to get through this hearing first. People can still debate him on the floor who didn't get a chance to be in the committee, but this one is the one that has to happen as we speak. And it looks like are they voting right now? I'm looking at the left screen. In CNN, that is Senate Armed Services, because I see
that was from earlier today.
Was that earlier?
So the confirmation actually ended around 1 o'clock, I think.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah,
or
the confirmation hearing.
Okay,
1 o'clock our time, I think it was around. So that I think that's from earlier today.
Okay, so I'm assuming he got reported out favorably.
What did they say? Tallying the votes. So was that just the votes within the subcommittee?
Yeah, and that's I mean, they should know. Why don't you Google that for me while I check some more text messages? Brian from Huntsville says. Afghanistan or the living room, almost any man's wife will say that your demeanor when you leave the room is far more important than when you walked in. Grumpy. He said, gently get it correct before you leave the room or the country. That's a comment I said earlier that Biden, the Afghanistan thing, that how you enter the war or how you leave the war is just as important, if not more so, than how you entered it. And he also said, no, he would not send the military to invade Greenland. It would capsize. That's the famous quote from the Republican congressman who was afraid that, I think it was Puerto Rico, would capsize if we put too much military presence on it. Devin from Brownsboro says, okay, it's a long text. He's right. He said, I got to tell you, my son, who's 20, has never shown any interest in what he wants to do with his future. Until the night Trump got elected, I noticed a change. Over the holidays, he came to me and told me that man walked through fire. That man walked through fire and endured just about every kind of hardship imaginable to fight for his country. He said that motivated him. So he wants to do the same, and proud to say he is now going through the process of joining the military. He now has a clear understanding of what he wants to do with his life. Devin, that is awesome, man. That chokes me up. That's just good. I mean, listen, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Devin, thank you, by the way. Tell your son I appreciate him very much, and I'm proud for you. What'd you find out? Did you find a vote count?
No, I don't know why they're tallying the votes. They did not vote today. So
okay, maybe they're gonna delay the vote till later. Mike from Florence, Alabama says she asked Pete about shooting protesters in the leg too. Mazie Hirano, she did. I didn't hear that part. She asked him about shooting protesters in the leg. What's that about?
I can't remember the exact context, but I saw, or while I was listening, I heard that part of it. Yeah.
Whatever, man. Navy Phil from Athens says, don't forget the 4-star general over Space Command who got it sent to Colorado and then retired and went to work for one of the Space Force contractors in Colorado. Hegseth was for a 10-year wait between a general retiring and going to work for a defense contractor. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, there's one right now that's so bad that what they're finding is that while working in the acquisitions environment, he actually steered certain contracts to a place where he got a job immediately thereafter. And that was being called out hard right now. A couple more, and then we'll take a break. Robert from Harvest says, it may be easy to overlook since we're so used to watching congressmen read their statements. However, when the Democrats wrapped up their statements to Pete Hegseth with an admonishment, they read those. They didn't care what the outcome of the statements were. Their negative summary to him was already written down. Listen, man, you are absolutely correct. They did not have any plans to do anything else except try to smear him in the hopes of swaying at least one vote. Jeff Rowe from Indiana says, Phil, I think there's going to be a lot of hungry Democrats tonight because I think Republicans ate their lunch and their dessert. He obviously heard the Mark Wayne Mullen comments. And then last one, Stephen from Athens says, it'll always be Fort Benning, Georgia to me. having spent many hours on that post, including as a young sergeant training at OCS to become a second Louis. No disrespect intended to General Hal Moore. Listen, that's exactly right. And I agree with you. I think Hal Moore is one of my modern day heroes. And if you're not familiar with the story, go read the book or watch the movie We Were Soldiers. What an amazing leader he was. But calling it Fort Benning didn't change our readiness. Calling it Fort Moore doesn't make us more ready. This was a woke washing, and it needs to stop. And we'll find out what they're going to do. Whether they're going to try and change the names back or leave them as they are, or in my opinion, give the locals a say in it. How about that? All right, we're taking a break right now. We'll come right back. I just got a text from Thomas, and I'm gonna go. Thomas is asking about some things that are in my studio right now that you can see on the live stream. So I reckon I'll touch on that when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Giving you all the truth you could slap on a bumper sticker. So I just got a text a while ago that I thought was interesting. So Thomas texted in and said, thank you. I'm praying for Mr. Hegseth on multiple levels and just visited your video live stream because a lot of folks don't realize you can actually watch the studio. And sometimes it's just, the image is me. Sometimes JP will pan it back and do other things, or we'll have a guest in studio so you can see what they look like while we're talking. But you can see inside the studio right now if you're watching the streaming, and he actually says, just visited your video live stream. Have you considered important decorations on the wall? He said, I don't know, maybe like the U.S. flag or the flag with stripes, or like the one with, green for the military, blue for law enforcement, red for firefighters. It would remind folks of your ancestors' sacrifices. And I hear that. And then he said some very gracious things about, owning faith-based things. So I tell you what you can't tell, Thomas, perhaps, is what's on the walls around me. So I gotta say this. The Rightside studio, first of all, rightsidemedia.org is our website. And the photo gallery on there, like one of the last pictures in the whole photo gallery on the website shows the American flag on the wall. I'm staring at it right now. We have a metallic battle flag, American flag, ragged from being carried in battle, up on the wall, and it's actually got a spotlight on it right now. So it kind of shines and shimmers in the light here. And then on the shelf behind me, what you may not be able to see, part of which is slightly obscured from the view I'm looking at, there's several things. There's mementos of my family on the shelf that's right behind me. There's another shelf above that has my nameplate from when I was in the state senate, and then above that, there's a shelf that has an American eagle. It has a coffee mug, basically from my time in ministry with Young Life. And it has something you probably can't partially see. It's a medallion that says Iraq and Afghanistan veteran. So I'm a veteran of both fronts. And the top shelf, which I think is obscured in the video, but the top shelf of that actually has a sign that was on my team wall in Baghdad that says my team's designation, and it says "Win friends, kill enemies," with a flag that has the appeal to heaven symbol on it. And the bottom line is there's a lot of stuff like what you're talking about, Thomas, right here in the studio. Thank you for watching the live stream. I appreciate it. And you're by the way, the American flag is also sitting on my desk right now as I speak too, right here in a cut. Anyway, bottom line is I think all the things you're talking about are pretty well covered.
That's mighty brave of you to have the appeal to heaven flag, considering Alito got under such. Remember that Alito became under such fire for having that on his lake house, or something like that.
I have had it on my shelf for years.
Yeah.
That to me, I look at that and go, the people who would criticize that have no clue about history.
No.
They just know what they were told on a recent race baiting MSNBC, pontification. Appeal to heaven. It's a flag that was George Washington authorized it for use on the Continental Navy, and it's got an evergreen tree with the appeal to heaven. Something else over here on the actual doorstop holding the door open in the studio is a 105 shell casing from my dad's tank. He was an M60 tanker. So I've got a 105 shell holding the door open. Just so you know, all that stuff's going on right here in the studio. All right, when we get back from the next break, I got two dippers, and I got to figure out which one I'm going to do. Because this day was so filled up, I don't know. But 833-687-4448, that is the number here at the studio. Call it or text it, 833-68-RIGHT. That's the number. Call it or text it and give us your comments and what you got about it.
I think it may also be a good time to remind the Chattanoogans, which, by the way, I looked it up. That is the correct term. So
Chattanoogans.
Chattanoogans is the correct term.
We love you some Chattanoogans.
If y'all haven't catched it before, where to catch us on social media, Rightside_media is our X page. But then Phil also has his account at Sen Phil Williams, SEN Phil Williams. We live stream the show to X every day, post threads and content on those. But also Rightside Media has a YouTube channel where we go live. We post shorts, and sometimes I'll pull Phil's monologue and post that if I feel like it was a really good one. So yeah, go check us out on those and follow us while you're there. We'd greatly appreciate it.
So I got two dippers coming up. One is called Live Free or Die, Second Amendment stuff. The other one's called The Death of Wokeness. I don't know. When you come back from the break, I'll see which one I've chosen because I won't get both out. I can tell you that. You guys are an amazing audience, though. We love you. We love the fact that we've expanded into Tennessee, and that's just nothing but good, y'all. And like I said, I had a discussion with another station today. We'll just see, man. I'm stoked at what's happening. I did not see this coming. I don't think Pete Hegseth saw himself go into a position like he's in right now today. I certainly didn't see myself sitting here in front of a microphone every day and having the amazing audience of Rightside ruffians that we've got. But I'm glad of it, and I wouldn't change a thing for the world. All right, so anyway, coming back from the break, we'll jump on it, and it's either going to be Second Amendment or it's going to be the death of wokeness. And if you got a quick idea about which one you want, text me right now, and I'll pick one out of my stack of stuff. I got a stack of stuff. I've gone through some paper today.
I can confirm he does have a stack of stuff. I can see it.
I have a stack of stuff right here on the desk. All right, man. Let's do it. I got another text from Kimball from Harvest. Says, Phil, I agree. The Biden administration has been absolutely horrible with diplomacy, information, intelligence, military, economic power. It's obvious to the whole world. In addition to all of this, there was never any will for success, mission accomplishment, or advancing the cause of America. Kimball from Harvest. What a great way to end that segment. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right.
Turn it up.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. I'm talking about Huntsville to Chattanooga, Tuscaloosa over to Gadsden, big old patches of Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. All right, hey, listen, I'm going to wrap this day with the votes we're in. I got multiple saying, let's do the one on the death of wokeness. I like it when the audience helps me figure out what I got going on. So yeah, if you're not familiar with the show because you're in Chattanooga and you're new to us, just know this: every day we have the opening monologue followed by what we call the triple dipper. And we don't always get all the dippers done. That's the life of the dippers, all right? I come in every day stacked up with paper. I've resourced the show. I'm ready. And sometimes one dipper gets done on the next day because that's the way it works. But I remember John from Huntsville one time saying, Phil, I can't give you a good grade because you didn't finish all the dippers. I said, John, here's the deal. If I don't finish them, it's because the content was so incredibly robust that it deserved more attention.
Not all dippers are created equal. Some of them are more than others.
Nice. But yeah, so dipper number 3 is what I'm going to jump on right now. Wokeness. Are we watching the death of wokeness? What exactly is wokeness? Matt Walsh from Daily Wire wrote a great piece about this. He said that wokeness is the suspension of reality in order to accommodate the demographics of the Democrat Party. That's a pretty good definition. Now, I have often referred to it as, wokeness being agenda-driven, being something that defies common sense. Oftentimes, wokeness is portrayed as something that is foisted upon us as a public policy position by the kakistocracy. Kakistocracy is an actual word defined as the governance of a country by the least competent of its citizens. It often by the times it is absolutely wrapped up in what we like to refer to around here as jackassery. Yes, indeed, jackassery. Are you playing jackassery? But are we watching wokeness die? I mean, so here's the thing. If wokeness goes out, I'm going to have less content for the show, and I can live with that, just so you know. It's a target-rich environment when the woke world stuff's going on. But we've seen some things, some key indicators. Some of the players, if you will, are starting to back off their wokeness. Now, not the least of which is the fact that Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram and half the internet, Meta just recently pulled back from its censorship policies. Suddenly, they're no longer in the quote-unquote misinformation guidance business. They got rid of all their fact-checker contracts. They decided to let the narrative be the narrative that develops as opposed to the narrative they were told to use. But it's more than that. Now, I'm a trust but verify guy. So as Mark Zuckerberg is out there on his apology tour, trying to throw other people under the bus and claim that he didn't really have any choices in the matter when it came to, vaccine mandates and the narrative about the Hunter Biden laptop and all of it. There's also some changes going on at Meta, like Meta headquarters. Like wokeness is almost becoming a punchline right now in society. Like wokeness has no real clout anymore. When you see Meta finally taking the tampons out of the men's room. Can I have some laughter or that? I mean, this is unreal. Yes, that's actually a really good laughter. So a quote here from the New York Times that Meta, the company removed the transgender and non-binary themes on its Messenger chat app. I didn't know they had those themes. I guess that was are those like emojis or what? How do you have a non-binary emoji?
Maybe they're...
it's nothing.
Well, I know there's an emoji of a guy being pregnant, so there's that.
Oh, boy.
So something probably along those lines.
Well, the same day they made that change on the Messenger app, Meta's offices in Silicon Valley, Texas, and New York facilities managers were instructed to remove the tampons from men's bathrooms.
How controversial?
Yeah, I'm saying, which the company had provided for non-binary and transgender employees who use the men's room, and it may have required sanitary pads, 2 employees said on the record. And you got to ask the question, why'd they even have those in the first place? Because of wokeness. That's why. And guess what? Ain't been no riots among the staff. Ain't nobody clamoring. Nobody's filing suit. It appears that it kind of went on by the wayside because I think we're watching in some ways the death of, it's like the world's waking up, you know, like the bad dream, like the fog is lifting and people are going, what? There's tampons in the men's room? Who did that? And suddenly people in the boardroom who are responsible to the shareholders are going, can we get the tampons out of the men's room? This really feels stupid. And they're embarrassed. Well, I'm glad. But we're watching this stuff play. You got something? We're watching this stuff play out. Here's another one. Death of wokeness? Maybe. Death of wokeness. Recently, a federal court in Kentucky handed the Biden administration its backside. Because you may recall the Biden administration has been trying to assault Title IX. Title IX, the federal law that protects, the rights of women in the educational arena to include sports. The Biden administration was unilaterally trying to, reinterpret Title IX to include gender identity and make it all fluid. And, hey, big doings. Dudes can compete in chick sports. That's great. That's not a problem. Except it's a problem. And the court basically handed the Biden administration a complete loss. The judge said in the ruling, the entire point of Title IX is to prevent discrimination based on sex. Throwing gender identity into the mix eviscerates the statute and renders it largely meaningless. Meaning, no, Biden administration, you don't get to do this. Now, granted, the Biden administration is going out. Why is that important? The Biden administration is on the way out, and certainly they're not going to have any clout in about, 4 or 5 days. But the reality is the courts have now rendered a judgment that becomes the precedent that any future woke administration is going to be bound to. And that's wonderful. Now, it's okay. So what else are we seeing? I mean, where else are we seeing changes? Well, you gotta look at the fact that the suspension of reality among the demographics in the far left appears to have worn out its welcome. Even Democrats like Bill Maher are coming out now and saying, just stop the madness. Bill Maher just wants to be a liberal. He doesn't want to be a progressive whack job. And in his own eyes, the whack jobs are taking control of the party and guiding the politics because they're screamers. That's why. And they scream and they carry on and they try to dox and they cancel culture and all the things. And you look at it and go, you know what? If somebody just tells you no, maybe that's where it stops. How about no like McDonald's? Story here from the AP, straight off the AP wire. Dateline, I think last Thursday. 4 years after launching a push for more diversity in its ranks, McDonald's is ending some of its diversity practices, citing a U.S. Supreme Court decision that outlawed affirmative action in college admissions. Wait a minute. McDonald's is not a college. You're right. They see the handwriting on the wall. They see the death of wokeness. They see that groups like Meta, that are huge multi-billion dollar corporations, are pulling the tampons out of the men's room. They see the election tea leaves when what happened in, the populist vote in November. They see the Supreme Court making rulings. They see the federal court slapping down the Title IX reimaginings. And McDonald's is like, you know what? We're out of here. So DEI just went on the back burner at McDonald's. This accompanies the same decisions by Walmart, John Deere, Harley Davidson, Tractor Supply, all of which roll back their DEI initiatives. You're seeing state laws being put in place, like in Alabama and in Tennessee, that bind the state universities and state entities from implementing DEI laws. McDonald's says in the article from the AP that it will also pause what they call external surveys. They didn't elaborate, but what they're basically saying is they're going to quit doing the Human Rights Campaign's annual survey of LGBTQ plus employees. Why? because they're going to stop letting themselves be used by the woke parade. And when the HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, starts losing clout, wokeness is on the wane, my friends. I love, too, seeing things like, JP, you brought this one up the other day, Notre Dame's coach, Marcus Freeman.
Oh, yeah, I love Marcus Freeman.
I mean, what a solid dude.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Freeman, a black man, is enjoying his win the other night, right after the Penn State win, heading to the national championship. And he immediately gets asked by an ESPN reporter, "You're the first black head coach to go to a national championship. How much does this mean to you?" And his response was basically to disregard that question entirely. He said, "I've said this before. I don't want to take attention away from the team. It's an honor. I hope all coaches, minorities, black, Asians, white, doesn't matter, that great people continue to get great opportunities to lead young men like this. This is not about me. This is about us." He said, "We're going to celebrate what we've done because it's special." Basically, he said, stop asking me your race-baiting questions.
Yeah.
You know why? Because wokeness is finally getting pushed back.
And not only that, he also brought back a pregame mass for the team before the games. He said in a comment that he wants his players to learn how to make Jesus the Lord of their lives. So I'm very happy he's getting success. He's a great guy.
Yeah. I think I just became a Notre Dame fan. Here's another one. The death of wokeness. Well, okay, you're seeing it in the courts. You're seeing it in the corporations. You're seeing it on the sports fields. And you're seeing it in the state legislatures. In Alabama, we just had a massive win in the last couple of years called the VCAP bill, the Vulnerable Child and Protection Act, that prevents transgender surgeries and treatments on minors. Tennessee did the exact same thing. In fact, Tennessee's case, the Skermetti case, went all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, where it was affirmed. I take it back. It was argued, and we hope it will be affirmed, and we believe it will because of the way the court was leaning. But here's the thing. I've got a piece here from NPR. Phil, did you go to NPR? I did, because I wanted to see what the other side was saying. Your tax dollars at work. NPR is pointing out that half of the states in the nation have now passed bans on trans health care for kids. Half. Now, I want more. I want all 50 states and the various territories to pass similar bans. I don't want kids in America being experiments for social, justice warriors who believe that they can be fluid from that which God designed. But the reality is this. The fact that 25 states have now passed bans on this, that's called an emerging trend, y'all. That's called a wave arising. That's called the death of wokeness. You can't get around the state legislatures in those states. Is it a big deal? It's a big deal. The death of wokeness in the courts. It's a big deal. The death of wokeness on the sports fields. It's a big deal. The death of wokeness in the corporate boardrooms. And it's a big deal. The death of wokeness in the state legislatures. I'm going to tell you, here's where it all originated. It originated with y'all. Because the death of wokeness didn't happen in those places by themselves. The death of wokeness, politics runs downstream from culture, is the saying. The death of wokeness is because the people of this nation finally said, stop the madness. Stop it. Just stop the madness. Just stop pretending that boys can be girls and girls can be boys. Just stop pretending that diversity really means something and that equity is the same as equality. Stop the madness from telling us that you can reimagine science and forget what grammar means with pronouns and do all these things. Stop the madness. And by the way, quit trying to shame us for recognizing what is real. And quit pretending that following your own truth means anything else except pleasing yourself. Because truth is truth. Margaret Thatcher used to say, truth usually is the same old story, because it is. And I'm loving the fact that wokeness appears to be on the wane. Trick's going to be now crushing it out and then keeping it gone.
By the way, may I add one more to the end of wokeness, or the death of wokeness, I should say. The House passed today the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, 218.
Tuberville's bill.
Yep, 218 to 206, and they actually got 2 Democrats to join on to the bill to get passed. So
it's in Congress too.
Yep, it's in Congress as well.
I'm loving it. Loving it. Thank you. Good input. All right, listen, we're taking a break. Last break of the day. Taco Tuesday. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. Plain right. Just, I mean, like, man, making common sense like a superpower. Y'all are some texting machines today, by the way. Text lines 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Let me catch up on a few of these as we close out the show for the Taco Tuesday. Stephen from Athens had several texts. Oh, man, what a great text. Yeah, look at that. He says, Stephen from Athens says, Phil, listen to WVNN on iHeartRadio. Rarely miss, because you can stream it online. Yeah. So listen to WVNN, our Huntsville affiliate, on iHeartRadio, and rarely miss your show. And then later I listen to the podcast. Man, thank you, Stephen. He said, I've been all over Madison, Alabama today. I had your show playing in all the places I visited. 4 new listeners were added today. Just showed them how to listen live on their phones. Man, you got to love that. Thank you, Stephen. Man, I appreciate you. You are a true right side ruffian. And we can't even tell you how much we appreciate it. He says, by the way, he says, there's more of us than there are them. And most importantly, God is still on his throne. You nailed it, Stephen.
I also like the text said that one of them was an MPD officer who's now listening while he's running a radar, said that our show may have saved someone in a hurry from a speeding ticket.
Well, thank you to the men and women in blue. And by the way, Stephen also says he's a retired Madison County, Alabama deputy sheriff. I mean, I appreciate you. Reserve deputy sheriff, he says, to be accurate. And also was a senior principal engineer from his. Listen, we have the best audience in the world. Don't anybody try to argue me off of it. Grades are in. John's got the grades in. He says Phil gets an A+ for his magnificent double dipper performance. However, today's winner is obviously JP with a perfect A+ because he earned 10 extra credit points for those amazing surprise sound effects. He's listening the whole time. Congratulations. Hope you watch the TGL Indoor Golf Tournament tonight on ESPN.
I'll be watching Alabama play Ole Miss tonight in basketball when I'll be watching the TGL.
What is an indoor golf tournament?
It's Tiger Woods and I believe it was Rory McIlroy. They started their own indoor golf league where it's like turf, I believe, or maybe it's I don't know, some type of different grass. But it's fun. It's a fun watch. It's more interactive.
Is it like a par half? What do you have? I mean, how do you?
I don't know. I haven't watched it in its entirety. All I know is it's indoor and it's interactive. So it's supposed to be.
Does it have little windmills that go around and holes that bark at you?
But yeah, it's supposed to. A lot of people are loving it. I have to check it out sometime.
That's cool. That and pickleball.
Yeah. Oh gosh, not me. Not me.
Brian from Huntsville says, "Stop the madness. Molly Hatchett's Fall of the Peacemakers." Oh yeah, nice. Jeff from Indiana says, "Hey Phil, wokeness is what you get when you empty out all the insane asylums and let the deranged people walk the streets. Bring back the asylums, I say." Jeff from Indiana. Bobby from Huntsville says, "And you talk about the wokeness. Mayor Tommy Battle has hired a new DEI head for city." I had not heard that.
Yeah, there's rarely stuff Tommy Battle does I don't like.
Yeah, why would he do that?
I don't know. It's probably not him. It's probably somebody under him that he's overseeing. But still,
yeah, but he's still the boss.
It's true.
Wow. I guess I'll be checking that out to see what's going on there. Roy from Hartselle says, Phil, I'd like to know how many of those tampons in the boys' rooms were actually used by boys. I'm going to say none, except for the time they were playing gags with them, because they did. In the schools, they did. There's going to be like toilets stopped up. There's going to be people with them sticking out of their nose. There's going to be, it's a mess. Just, what do they think's going to happen? Matt from Madison says, I would love to see President Trump systematically undo all the last 4 years of existence, thereby erasing any memories of the nincompoop that was there. Well, I think we have to learn from our history, so we better go ahead and just remember what just happened. But yes, we got to live past it. All right, listen, that was a whole lot of stuff, and we didn't even get to all the text messages. But I will tell you this. He was right, Stephen from Athens. There are more of us than there are them. God is still on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.